Hey guys, it's Loaf, ready to give you my second build guide of the patch, my Shield Throw Forge Guard. This video will go through every aspect of the build from level 1 to 100 and is not meant to be watched in one sitting. It is going to be pretty long trying to go over each aspect, but there will be extensive timestamps so that you can skip ahead to the part of the build that you need help with. And like always, there will be leveling, budget, endgame, and aspirational planners, as well as loot filters in the video description below. One thing I do want to call out with this build that's a little different from my Javelin, if any of you guys had played that previously, is this build is a little bit more gear intensive. It takes a little bit longer to get going. There is going to be one required unique, the Stygian's Shield, that is fairly common to get. And then there is a tedious process of farming some 1x1 Weaver idols. It only takes a couple of them to really get the build feeling good. However, it'll take a while to farm all of them. So I will include a section where I go over the best method to farm all of the different unique items and how to best farm the 1x1 idols. So I will have a pre-build leveling planner for you guys to kind of get the build going in a similar fashion, but using a different setup before you get any of those uniques. That way you can level the character without anything and you can still farm up that gear. Just a reminder that all my characters are in Circle of Fortune faction, so I self-farmed all of my own gear. I don't play merchant, so I can't just go in and buy all these things. So it's definitely obtainable and doable for most players, but I just want to give you guys a fair warning, but I'll help give you the tools to be able to get those items. If you guys do enjoy my content and you do want to see more builds like these, make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe to the channel and come watch me live where I make these characters at twitch.tv/pinchingloaf and let me know what build you guys want to see next in the comments. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the build guide. Alrighty guys, the first thing that I wanted to go over in the build is the leveling setup, and the first thing of that I want to go over is just some good leveling uniques that you may have previously farmed or something to look out for while you're going through the leveling experience. For starters, if you do have access to a Bleeding Heart, it is a great leveling unique as it will cover all of your sustain needs. That way you don't have to worry about popping potions. You can just use this to automatically reach health whenever you're hitting monsters. So great find. All of these leveling uniques have a really high chance to obtain them by killing nemesis monsters during the campaign. So I'll just make sure anytime you see a nemesis monster that you go over and kill them, or anytime you see a unique lizard, which is the ones that look like a white lizard on the minimap, if you kill those guys, you're gonna have a pretty good chance of getting some of these early on. So Bleeding Heart's the first one. The second one is the Firestarter's Torch. This is one of the best leveling items in every single character. Even if you're not playing a fire damage build, you basically have the chance to apply Spreading Flames on hit, which is a fire damage over time ailment that auto spreads to all nearby enemies. And it can only have one stack. However, it has a really high base damage compared to normal ailments. And during the early game, you're basically one-shotting packs with this. Also, this happens to be the best in slot item for the late game shield throw. So using early Runes of Ascendance would definitely be useful on scepters. So keep an eye out for this guy. The next one is going to be the Thornslinger. Thornslinger is going to give you +1 to your physical skills. The extra bleed chance early on is really, really strong. It'll help you keep running faster in the campaign and give you that extra throwing speed, which is really, really nice. Foggy Race is the next one. This one sometimes can be good, sometimes can be bad. It's a Weaver's Will item, so it's going to acquire random stats on it as you kill monsters. However, it can very easily get T6 and T7 stats, and regardless what stats it has on it, it still has a required level of 15. So you could get like a T7 flat throwing damage on here at level 15, and it will just absolutely annihilate the early game. You can also get like early resistances from this or health and various things there. So look out for a good roll on some Bond of the Erased. This is going to be a throwing build, so Riverbend Grasp, being able to use that at level 15 is really nice for the extra little flat damage, health, and the 100% increased throwing damage that it's going to give you. Just a nice little boost in damage. Next up is the advent of the erased. It's going to be the same thing as the font of the erased, where it's a Weaver's Will item. So sometimes you can get like T7 movement speed on these guys early. Being able to get the automatic haste whenever a nearby enemy dies is really, really nice as well. Just keep you speeding through the campaign. And then lastly, we have the Code of the Erased Sentinel. This is also an endgame unique item that we're going to be looking for. So getting one of these early on and trying to get the right stats on it is going to be really nice. It's going to give you +1 to all of your Sentinel skills, as well as that armor and dot mitigation. Keep a lookout for stuff that gives you like flat throwing damage, crit multi, dexterity, stats like those. That's what we're going to be looking for in the endgame build. But any of them at an early level is going to be really strong. And then that's going to wrap up kind of the early leveling uniques that I would keep an eye out for. Next up, guys, I want to go over the leveling build. I did go over this briefly in the intro. You aren't really going to be able to play shield throw at an effective level until you at least get the unique shield that we'll go over in the next planner here. So what I do recommend doing early is playing hammer throw because it scales the same exact way that shield throw does. So you can kind of still start building out the character. And then the moment you get the super common unique shield, you can swap over to full shield throw. Also, you get hammer throw at like level 4, so it's super easy to start getting into the build very, very early on, and it's one of the strongest ways to level Sentinel anyways, so just a really great option. I'm not going to go as in detailed into the leveling setup. It's pretty basic there. Gear wise, you're mainly just looking for like dexterity, increased damage with hammer, stuff that gives you flat throwing damage, especially on the rings with the minus mana cost for throwing skills, throwing attack speed, levels to hammer, and yeah, just that's basically all you're looking for. That and health and res on your gear. As far as like the idols go, throwing crit multi and health. If you can get some smite idols, those are pretty nice too, as you can make smite give you a buff that gives you 20% increased throwing speed. So that's basically what you're going to be looking for. Most of the gear stats are going to be very similar to shield throw. As far as like the weapon goes, your weapon flat damage doesn't apply to throwing skills. So you're basically just looking for any weapon that has base crit on the implicit. So that's the 3 to 4% that you see at the top. The leveling filter that I'm providing does have stuff for hammer throw built into it. So you'll start seeing all of these items for it, as well as the shield throw items. So it'll have you covered there. So this is how I would start out. All of the planners are going to have a slide bar here. They show you which nodes to take when for what different skills. As far as hammer throw goes, it's going to be pretty easy to play early on. It's going to use spiral hammers early, and then it's going to transition to a Nova playstyle where it shoots out like a fan all around you to hit targets, and it's going to be scaling crit hit damage. You're going to be using Shield Rush to move around. Symbols are going to be auto buff skills using, make sure you have the skill on your bar, and it will just automatically generate them. You don't have to worry about them at all, and it's just going to give you a bunch of buffs. We do have shield throw in this setup. Now, the reason that we use that is we use it a little bit differently than how it will be in the end game. It's going to be on a 6-second cooldown, so you're just going to click it every time it's up. It's going to ricochet to you, even if there's no other targets. So if there's one target, it's just going to bounce back and forth between you and the boss, and it's going to do a lot of damage with this setup, as well as it's going to give you a bunch of buffs. It's going to give you Frenzy, which is going to give you an additional 20% throwing speed, and it's going to give you an increased armor and Fizz Pen per stack each time it hits an enemy. So just a really nice burst damage buff skill for your hammer throw. And then last, you'll just throw in Smite, mainly just for the 20% attack speed buff. You can self-cast Smite during leveling 2 to get you mana back when you run out of mana. Eventually, though, you're going to grab a Mana Star Forging node out of Hammer Throw, and it's basically going to make your hammer cost 0 mana once you run out of mana. And so you don't really need mana at all for this build. So that'll be a really nice quality of life, not having to worry about that. Other than that, the passive tree, same thing. It's going to have full sliders to kind of walk you through that process. Once you get the timed fake nodes, you'll be able to get your mana back from self-casting Smite until you get the 0 mana node on Hammer. Everything else is going to be very, very close on how you would build this character out if you were playing Shield Throw. So just follow it to a T. You should have an easy leveling experience. And then the moment you get the unique shield, you don't need any of the idols to get going. you can go ahead and swap over to the actual shield throw build. However, it does take you a long time to get the shield. This build can actually get you to level 100. It performs very, very well. So don't worry about that. You're still going to be able to perform at a high level until you get that shield drop. Alrighty, guys, let's go ahead and get into the budget planner for shield throw. Now, like I was saying earlier, to play this build, you are going to need the Stygian's Reprisal unique shield. It is a level 35 unique shield. It is very common to get, so you should get one very early on. If you already have one of these shields, you can make the swap at level 35 to shield throw. So this is the only requirement for this build to get going. So before I go over the rest of the gear, I do want to kind of briefly go over the skills and passive tree first. Your first skill here is going to be shield throw. Now, shield throw is pretty easy to kind of level through. We're going to have the sliders here to help you out so you know what points to take first. Now, the first couple points here, we're going to take the 2 points into arrow plates. That is going to reduce the mana cost by 4. So instead of costing 6 mana per shield throw, it's only going to cost you 2 mana. And then we'll be taking the 3 points into Empiric Steel. Now, this is such a nice quality of life. This is going to give you a percentile amount of the damage that you deal with shield throw healed back to you as health. So this is going to mean you don't have to have any leech items on your gear. You don't have to have a bleeding heart. You don't have to farm a Weaver's Gift. It is completely taken care of in the skill itself. As well as it's also going to steal armor from the enemies and give it to yourself. So it's kind of like armor shred, but it also benefits your defenses. Next up, we're going to be taking the 2 points here into Hemren's technique. It is going to make your shields ricochet each time. So by default, when you throw a shield at an enemy, it is going to ricochet up to 2 additional targets before it comes back to you. The downside is you can't throw a new shield until it returns back to you, but we'll be fixing that later on. So this is going to add 2 additional ricochets for a total of 4. As well as it's going to heal you for the amount of dex that you give. The health here is really minor compared to the Empiric Steel, but we are stacking a bunch of dex on this build, so it's not nothing. Now, after you get the 2 ricochets, we're going to grab Shield Barrage. So your shield throw can now be thrown while you have a shield out, but the shields are smaller and deal less damage. So no longer has a cooldown, doesn't have to return back to you. You get minus 5% damage, which isn't really a lot, and then 50% fewer ricochets. That's the main reason why that we go over to the technique node here first. You typically don't have enough throw speed in the early game to be throwing more shields than the time it takes for it to come back to you. So by the time you get some little bit of throwing speed and gear, you should be able to take Shield Barrage to help fix that. But that way, at least you have the extra ricochets to go on top of that before you reduce it by 50%. After that, we're going to take the 1 point into Sleep Buckler. It's going to increase our attack speed and the projectile speed of the shields themselves, mainly to get over to Ricochet. So this is going to make the shield throw cost an additional 6 mana. However, it's going to add an additional 2 ricochets, really helping out that clear, especially since we're cutting our ricochets in half for the no cooldown node. After that, we're going to take an additional point to Sleep Buckler. So we can go ahead and get access to Steel Defender. Now, this is a really important node and is very strong for our single target, because if there's only one target, you cannot ricochet to the boss and yourself with the default shield throw. So it's only going to hit them one time if there's no other targets. So what this is going to do is allow shield throw to target allies and be able to ricochet off of them. So if you have 4 ricochets and there's you and a ally, it can hit, or sorry, a boss and the ally, it can hit the boss, hit the ally, and then go back to the boss to get multiple hits on them with each throw. Also, it's very important to note that shield throw does damage to anything it passes through, even if it's not ricocheting to that target. Now, I know you're wondering, I don't have friends, I don't play with anybody, how am I going to get allies? That's going to come into play with our next skill, how we're able to generate our own allies to make single target much, much better. All right, next up, we're going to be taking the 2 points into Heavy Shield. This is going to give us 12 flat throwing damage and a 6% more damage multiplier. And it's going to give us access to Sharpened Rim. This is going to give us an additional 6% base crit. So by default, every skill has 5% base crit. So you're more than doubling the amount of crit that you get from all sources with this 3 points here. We are going to be a full crit build. It's very important to get to 100% crit late game. So this will make it much easier to do that. Next up, we'll be taking the 2 points into Forgeborn. This is going to give us 10 flat fire throwing damage, as well as 10% fire pen. That's going to be really important for the next node that we're taking, Molten Shield. This is actually going to convert Shield Throw into a fire skill instead of a physical skill. The reason being is a certain combo that we are going to have in the later game. Once you start getting these specific idols, that's going to go into play with the unique shield that we're using. We are going to get more flat damage in this build than 99% other builds. And the best way to build around a build that has a ton of flat damage is to get a bunch of more multipliers and then also going into crit. So being a fire damage skill is going to allow us to get a much heavier access to more damage multipliers. Next up, we'll be taking the 1.2 spike plates. What this is going to do is it's going to convert 50% of your total block chance into a more multiplier for its hit damage. And then we'll be taking Avenger's Wrath. That's going to convert a chunk of our block effectiveness into crit multiplier. After that, we're going to be taking the 1 point into Rygar's Fury. What this will do is it's going to apply 100% of our block chance into a more damage multiplier. That does stack with spike plates, so you get 150% of whatever your block is into a more damage multiplier. The downside is while your shield is thrown out, it is going to give you -20 to all res. So for our resistances, we're actually going to be looking to cap them at around 95% instead of 75% to make up for this. Now, this is for the budget planner, but any additional points that you get, you are going to put them into Molten Toss. So that's going to give you an additional 25% more damage per point. So it's going to be really, really strong. Later on with better gear, you're going to get tons of extra levels into Shield Throw, and you're going to slap them all here. And then that will wrap up Shield Throw. For our next skill, we're going to have Ring of Shields. What this does is it manifests a ring of shields around you. These all count as allies. And then each shield is going to have 75 base health. It's going to last up to 10 seconds. And it's going to block projectiles for you and take a lot of extra hits for you. And then stats on your equipped shield also apply to these shields created by a Ring of Shields. Now, as far as leveling this goes, we're going to be taking the 2 points into Reinforcement to add 2 additional shields that are going to circle you. We're going to be taking the 5 points into Banding to increase their health by 100% and give them 50% physical resistance to try to keep them alive. And then next up, we're going to be putting the 2 points into Healing Shields. So every 6 seconds, each shield is going to heal nearby allies. That includes you by 20 health per shield. And the big reason that we're taking this node is when the shields heal their allies, they're also going to increase the armor for 4 seconds. So we're going to get 20% armor on the heal, as well as 50% block effectiveness whenever they heal us. After we get the block effectiveness, we're going to put the additional points into Phalanx to get the 50% extra armor. So just a massive defensive layer. The block effectiveness is good for defense, as well as it's getting converted into crit multi for our Shield Throw. After that, we'll put any remaining points that you get into the extra duration of the Ring of Shields. Now, why this is so important is your Shield Throw can target allies. So these shields are going to follow you and they're going to circle around you. So if you stand on top of the boss and you throw your shield to the boss, it is going to ricochet to one of the nearby shields and then is going to go back to the boss or ricochet to another shield. every time it ricochets to a shield, it's going to pass through the boss if you're standing on top of them, and it's going to do damage. This is going to skyrocket our single target damage, and is the main reason why you want to play Forge Guard over any of the other ascendancies. So Ring of Shields is just a powerhouse for single target damage. Next up, we have the Symbols of Hope. So these you'll get access to once you have 15 points in the Paladin tree. They've reworked this skill from the Relics of Hope that they used to be last season. Basically how they work now is they're completely passive. So you put them on your bar and you can kind of forget about it. Every 2 seconds, it's going to summon a symbol that orbits around you, and it's going to give you 3 additional flat damage and some increased health regen. We're going to make it give us a whole bunch of other buffs as well. So if we follow the sliders here, we're going to take 2 travel points into Iron Symbols. It doesn't really do a whole lot for us there, but it gives us endurance threshold per symbol. The cooldown recovery for the symbols, again, more just a passive point, but it's going to help keep up your maximum amount of symbols all the time. We're going to take the 1 point to Tetragram for the +1 maximum symbols. So by default, you can have 3 symbols at a time. So that's giving you basically 9 flat fire damage. So we're going to add an additional symbol, which is basically going to multiply all of the buffs that we're getting from here. So that's an additional 3 flat fire damage for right now. Next, we're going to take the 1 point into Meditation. It's going to make it so it doesn't affect your allies, but it's only going to affect you. It's going to double the health regen, but the main reason is to get access to Sign of the Guardian. If you remember from Shield Throw, we get a more damage multiplier based on our block and a crit multiplier based on our block effectiveness. So now every single shield is going to give us extra block chance and extra block effectiveness here from these symbols. So really, really strong offense and defensive mode. Next up, we'll take the 4 points into Empowering Symbols. This is going to make each symbol also give us 20% increased damage. After that, we're going to go down here, take the travel nodes into Quiet Mind. We don't really care about the active that much, and the healing. But mainly we're going over here to get Polygram to get an additional +1 max symbol for a total of 5 symbols that are all going to be giving us that 3 flat damage, 20% damage, and the block on effectiveness. And then any other remaining points that you get, you're going to put into Heavenly Justice to give you crit chance per symbol that you have. So super just passive skill. You don't really have to worry about ever activating it. The activation does give you some damage reduction, but in the time that it took you just to activate that, you probably could have just dodge rolled out of the ability. So mainly just a passive ability. Next up, we have the newly reworked Volatile Reversal. If you guys aren't familiar with how they changed this, it is no longer the insta-death button that pulls you backwards in time and gets you killed all the time, at least not how we use it. So it is now a teleport ability. So it just shoots you forward wherever your cursor is at, teleporting you forward in time. Now, by default, you do have the option to click it again to bring you back in time, but we're actually going to get rid of that function, and we're going to make this just be a normal teleport and a buff skill. So if we're following our slider here, we're going to take the first 4 points into Swift Echoes to increase the cooldown recovery of our teleport by 20%, help us move around a lot faster. Then we're going to take the 1 point to Mutable Pass. This is going to get rid of the go back in time ability, so that way you don't accidentally get yourself killed. Next up, we're going to take 2 travel points into Temporal Dilation. It is also important to note it's going to extend the duration in which you could go backwards in time. Even though we take Immutable Pass, this still is kind of important for our coming up nodes here. We'll take 1 point to Catching Up. We're never jumping backwards in time, so we're not getting haste. What we do get is you gain the Frenzy buff while you are able to jump backwards in time. What this is basically going to do is anytime that Volatile Reversal is on cooldown, it's just going to give us permanent Frenzy. So every single time Volatile Reversal comes up, you're just going to teleport. Even if you're on a boss fight, just teleport directly on top of the boss. It's going to give us Frenzy, which is going to give us 20% increased throwing speed. Next up, we're going to take 4 points into Phase Reality. This is going to make 20% of our armor mitigation also apply to damage over time. For Sentinels, damage over time is the scariest type of damage, so getting any kind of mitigation there is really important. Okay, so these are the extent of the useful nodes inside of Volatile Reversal. It is very, very strong just with these. Now, these next points are mainly going to be travel points. You can get some very, very minor things like increased slow chance when you hit enemies. It doesn't make a big difference. Don't judge me for this. I am going to take the travel points down here. I'm going to convert it over to fire. It's a fire build. I like having thematics to the build. Instead of having a void explosion whenever you teleport, it's going to create the sick fire explosion that you saw in the gameplay video. You don't have to take these. You can put more into slow chance to help slow enemies. Do you, but I'm adding the fire conversion, so don't judge me for it. Normally, I don't do that kind of stuff, but there is literally nothing else in this tree that I care about other than looking cool. So this is already worth taking just to have these 2 nodes over here. So that's the way I'm doing it. You can change those nodes around however you would like. Alrighty, guys. A lot of people have been asking me on stream when they see this on my bar. I've changed around some of the skills that I'm using. I've tried Shield Bash. I've tried Healing Hands. I've tried a whole bunch of other stuff. And I feel that this is absolutely the go-to skill for the last slot. Forward Strike. So it's going to sound weird, but I'll get into it. It is a melee attack that gives you a 25% chance to, on hit to summon a forged weapon, which lasts 20 seconds, which is basically a minion that just is like a sword that walks around and hits stuff. Now, first things to keep in mind, forged weapons are allies. You can ricochet off of them. So that's a great start to begin with there. You get extra allies. How we're going to be speccing this out is we're going to be taking the travel points into Heavy Strike and Rending Descent. Rending Descent does give you some armor shed, which is nice, but the main reason we're taking these skills is for these nodes over here. So Reinforced Weapon, you get a more damage multiplier. We talked about how important that is with all the flat damage we're getting. If you have used Forward Strike recently, this is global, so it applies to all of your abilities. So you're getting 12% more damage for shield throw if you use Forward Strike recently. Next, you're going to take your 2 points of Fan the Flames, and it's going to give you a global fire penetration for all of your abilities. So you get 30% fire pen for shield throw, as well as you get 100% increased armor for 4 seconds. So every about 4 seconds, you're just going to slap down a Forward Strike. It's going to give you a bunch of buffs. It like almost doubles my damage between the pen and the global multiplier, on top of getting the extra armor. Just really, really strong ability, especially for bossing. Outside of that, all of the other nodes we're going for are going to be for attack speed because we don't have a lot of melee attack speed. And this is going to help us get this off without it feeling super clunky. So we're going to take the 4 points into Light Forge for the 20% extra attack speed. We'll take the travel point to Inbound and Singular Craft so we can get over to Put to the Sword for the 35% more attack speed. And then all remaining points, we're just going to put into Rending Descent for the extra shred effect and shred stacks there. So if you can hit the target with it, great. If you're already on top of them, if not, no biggie. You just throw it out into the middle of nowhere. It doesn't matter. You're just mainly doing it for the massive damage buff that this gives you. And then that's going to wrap up all of the skill options here. So hopefully the reason why I made all these choices makes sense to you. And then as we start going through the passive tree and the gear, you'll start seeing a lot more of the synergies going on. Alrighty, guys, let's go ahead and start breaking down the passive tree. Again, make sure you guys are using the sliders here at the bottom to see when to take what nodes. But let's go ahead and break down why we're taking each option. Now, for the first 5 points, we're going to be going into Juggernaut. This is going to give us +5 strength. Strength is going to increase the damage of our shield throw by 4% per strength. It's going to give us a little bit of armor, as well as it's going to tie into one of our other passive abilities later on, where we do need a little bit of strength in the gear. It's also going to give us an early access to 20% fire and void res, which is really nice with those early void zones that do a lot of damage. After that, we're going to put the 5 points into Armor Clad. It's going to give us 75 armor and -10% damage taken from nearby enemies. Basically, anywhere you can get just straight damage reduction is going to be really, really strong. So this is a no-brainer for all Sentinels. After that, we're going to be taking the 5 points into Valiant Charge. This is going to give us a little bit of health and reduce the cooldown recovery speed for our movement skills by an additional 30%, allowing us to move around a lot faster. After that, we're going to be finishing out the points into Juggernaut for the extra strength and res. We'll take 1 travel point to Fearless, so that way we can get the 1 point to Stalwart. This is going to give us 3% block chance. As we talked about earlier in these skills, block chance is a great defensive and offensive setup here for our shield throw. That's going to give us our 20 points into Sentinel. Then we're going to start putting points into our Forge Guard tree. Now for the first 5 points, we're going to be going into Steel Aegis for that additional block chance, block effectiveness, and armor. That's just more damage, crit multi, and extra defense there. We're going to take 1 travel point to Weapons Master, so that way we need access to Peltast. Now, the reason why we're going into Peltast, which gives us percentile damage, instead of doing like Fresh from the Forge, that gives us much flat damage, which is what you're going to want to do in basically every other throwing setup that's doing crit damage, is because we already get so much flat damage from our unique shield that we'll go into later on, that getting more damage multipliers and percentile damage multipliers actually ends up being way more damage for us. So we're going to go 9 points into the Peltast here. Now, these next points are going to be a little confusing unless you remember how the unique shield works that we're using. So Thorn Mail is going to give us an additional 240 armor, and it's going to give us 240 flat thorns damage, basically. It's also going to come with a 5-point bonus where you reflect damage back to attackers per percentage of your armor mitigation. So every 1% armor mitigation is going to be an additional 5 flat thorns damage. Why this is really important is because for every 10 flat thorns damage we have, we are going to get 1 flat throwing damage. So this is basically giving us 24 flat throwing damage plus the armor conversion to flat throwing. Now, it's very important that you know that the percentiles to damage reflect don't actually apply for the flat damage. So the only thing that we're looking for is flat thorns damage. So just a whole bunch of flat damage for free right there. Next up, we'll be taking 2 points for now into Hammer and Anvil. This is going to give us an extra armor shred chance, which is really nice for bossing. After that, we're going to be grabbing the 6 points into Might for the additional 6 strength, which is going to give us damage and armor, as well as the 12 percentile health that we get here. Pretty much anywhere you can get percentile health, you definitely want to go for that. Next, we'll be taking 1 point originally into the Iron Reflexes. This is going to give us +2 dexterity and reduced bonus damage taken from crits. We are going to be stacking a lot of dex, which is going to also give us percentile damage for our shield throw, and it's going to give us a bunch of crit that we're going to get into in just a second. After that, we'll be taking 4 points into Crusader. This is going to give our throwing attacks 60% extra critical strike chance. Next, we'll put additional 2 points for now into the Iron Reflexes. And then we're going to put 1 travel point into Flawless Defender. It's going to give us an extra 75 armor while we're using a shield. And for now, we're going to put 1 point into Walls of Solarum. It's going to make it so you take less damage, so it's just 1% less damage. And then that effect's going to be doubled if you're over 50%, which we're definitely going to be. It's also going to give us the 3% block chance built into there. After that, we're going to be going into probably the most important nodes in the Forge Guard skill tree here, which is Javelineer. This is going to give us 40% throwing attack critical multiplier, but the 4-point bonus says your throwing attacks have additional base crit per 5 points of dexterity. So like we said with the shield throw, every skill starts out with 5% base crit. So if you have 100% increased critical strike chance and you have 5% base crit, then you have 10% chance to critically strike. So base crit is really, really hard to get. So now every 5 points of dex, which is not a lot, is going to give us an additional 1% base crit. We're going to end up with like 20+% base crit, which is going to make it really, really easy to get crit capped here. So really, really strong node. After we get that, we're going to put the 1 additional point into Iron Reflexes so we can get access to this last row of skills. And then we're going to be putting 5 points into Shield Crafter. What this does is you have a chance every time that you block with your shield that you're going to automatically summon a ring of shields, which is the ally that you can ricochet off of. On top of that, this is going to make it so your minions have extra health, so they're easier to stay alive. You're going to get extra block effectiveness per shield as well. This also applies to your just Ring of Shields skill tree. So you're getting a whole bunch of extra block effectiveness automatically now. That's going to get converted into crit multi with shield throw as well. So really, really strong node to get that passively just on random enemies. After that, we're going to take a little bit of a break from the Forge Guard skill tree. We're going to start putting some points into Paladin so you can get access to Symbols of Hope. You're going to put the 8 points into Defiance. This is mainly just for the 24% Ellie res. After that, you're going to put the 5 points into Honor for the 3% block chance and the extra block effectiveness. You're going to put just 1 point into Valor, which is going to give you Endurance and Health, and 1 point into Phoenix Strike. We'll get into why we're doing that later. It's mainly for access over here, but that's going to give you enough points to get into Symbols of Hope. For right now, we got access to Symbols of Hope. We're going to start putting points into the Void Knight tree so we can get access to Volatile Reversal. So you can put 5 points into Abyssal Endurance. This is going to give us 40 health. It's going to give us Void and physical res, as well as an additional minus 5% Void and physical damage taken. So there's more damage reduction, which is great. After we grab that, now we're going to get into the additional points in Paladin. We're going to take 5 points into Raya's Strength. That's going to give us an additional 5% strength. But the main reason we want to get this is actually going to cover all of our fire res shred. If you don't know how resistance shred works, is it can only stack up to 10 times, but it is really, really strong. It's basically like fire pen or armor shred, but you're pulling it off the enemy. And you basically want some sort of this on every character if you're playing a hit build. So just with the strength that we're getting inside the passive tree, this will actually give us enough to max out on 10 stacks on a single target boss. So we get fire res shred chance per 2 strength. So we're getting 5% chance per 2 strength that we get. So we will have plenty covered just by that. After that, we're going to take 3 points into Force of Devotion. It's going to give us some extra flat throwing damage, which is nice, but we already get a ton of that. The main reason we're going for this is to give us the 30% chance to apply Frailty on hit. Frailty makes enemies do less damage, and it stacks up to 3 times. So the 30% should be plenty for us to hit maximum stacks on a boss without having to worry about getting on our gear, as well as it's getting us a little bit more throwing armor shred chance, which is really, really strong. Now, for the last 15 points, we're going to go back into the Forge Guard tree. We're going to finish taking the Walls of Solarum, which is going to give us that 5%, which is doubled with 50% or more block to 10%, just less damage taken from everything. We're going to finish capping out the 10 points in Iron Reflexes for the extra dexterity, which is giving us base crit and damage, as well as the reduced bonus damage taken from crits. We're going to finish capping out Hammer and Anvil for the extra armor shred chance. And then for the last 2 points, we're just going to put them into Javelineer for the extra throwing attack critical strike multiplier. And then that's basically going to wrap up the passive trees. Hopefully that makes sense and why we're taking what and when. But basically just a big tanky boy with a bunch of armor and block chance and block effectiveness that's getting converted over to more damage and crit multi and reflect damage to kind of make this powerhouse of a character. All right, guys, next up, we're going to be going over the gear choices on the budget planner. This is going to look very similar to the hammer leveling setup that we were seeing before. Again, the first thing I want to go over is just the Stygian's Reprisal. So this is the main kind of focal piece of the build. So it's going to give us those extra levels to shield throw. You get a chance that whenever you're attacked, you're just automatically going to throw out a shield at the target up to 2 times per second. Getting that extra block chance on there, as well as we're getting some flat damage reflect to attackers, which goes into the key point of it where we get the +1 throwing damage for shield throw per 10 reflected damage to attackers. So this has existed before. This is not new. However, you never used to be able to get enough flat reflect on in the game to make it anywhere close to worth it. But the shield, if you had a perfect roll on the shield, it's 11.5 throwing damage. And then you could get a little bit on an armor piece, and then you could use the leveling unique belt to get like an extra like 3 flat damage or something like that. Just not worth sacrificing your shield slot for. However, the new addition to this season is the added Weaver's Idols. And I can't believe these actually made it to the game with the current numbers that they have. But you can get these small 1x1 Weaver Idols that give you 50 to 150 flat damage reflected to attackers. So to give you an idea, that's basically on a perfect roll. That's 15 flat damage per 1x1 slot that you have. And in the past, the best that you could really do is like on your relics, ring, gloves, and amulet, you could get like on a tier 7, 37 flat damage. And you were limited to those, 4 or 5 pieces of gear that you could get it on. Where now on a 1x1 idol, you can fill up your entire idol section with 15 flat per slot. So it's just absolutely crazy amounts of flat damage. There will be a timestamp on how to farm these idols up, as they're a little tedious right now since Prophecies aren't working on them at the moment. So you have to get them out of like tombs and cemeteries, but I'll go into that later in the video on how to farm all these guys. You don't need a lot of these to get started. Even just a couple or even 0. A lot of people were leveling the character without any, just with the Stygian's Reprisal, and said it was just fine early on. But basically, as soon as you get them, you're going to start replacing all of these other idols for the small Weaver idols. These are just kind of placeholders to hold you over until you get more of them. So just extra throwing crit multi, health, and like chance for extra flat damage and armor shred. So just whatever you want to put in here, you can put res idols in there, but Weaver's idols will trump the rest of these idols here. As far as the rest of the gear, we're looking for like crit chance, crit multi, armor shred. We're looking for like levels to shield throws really big. The extra levels will give you access to more Molten Toss, which will give you 25% more damage. You need at least one pretty good roll of percentile critical strike chance on your gear, depending on how much dex you have, because dex does give you base crit. So if you're able to get like a little bit on your amulet, and then like the throwing critical strike chance, or there is another like identical mod specific for shield throw. It gives you the exact same values, so 73 to 95 at tier 5, 73 to 95 at tier 5. So whichever one you find works there. I would just try to get it either on your armor or your chest piece, and then on the other one you just get dex instead. On the armor, do try to get the flat damage reflected to attacks, a little bit of dex, percentile health, and armor. It's going to basically be the trend across the board. You need a little bit of flat throwing damage on the belt so there's not a better stat. Some fire damage and health. It is pretty important to focus on these high level bases though. In Last Epoch, the actual base type of every item is very important. It's almost as important as the stats itself on the piece of gear. So for an example, the Great Helm on your helmet, it gives you 550 flat armor, and it can make you take 85% reduced damage taken from critical strikes. This one base item alone almost completely solves your critical damage defense. Where if you compare it to like this guy, gives you 56 armor, a little bit of stun chance. So really try to focus on the higher level bases if you can. Great Helm is by far the best. Terror Crown and Solarum are the second best because they both give you high armor. Solarum will also give you increased fire damage. So I would try to get one of these 3 helmets, but try to prioritize the Great Helm. As far as the chest armor, it's the same thing. Champion Regalia gives you 700 flat armor, as well as applying a percentage of your armor mitigation to damage over time. If you can't get this guy, you're going to want to go for the Apocalypse plate or the Solarum plate once you're high enough level for that huge amount of armor. The Solarum will also give you fire damage. For your weapon, you're looking for anything with base crit on it until you get the unique weapon that is in the end game planner. The unique weapon's really easy to get. We talked about it in the leveling uniques as well. But anything that has that like 4% base crit on there, it's mainly going to be on axes and a bunch of daggers. So 2% base crit, 2%, 3%, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4% base crit. So just anything with base crit on it. The rest of the rolls on the implicit don't matter. And then you're just mainly looking for crit multi, critical strike chance, fire pen, armor shred, stuff like that. On the rings, make sure you're getting throwing attack speed. Throwing attack speed is really, really important for clear. So getting as much attack speed as possible and getting the minus mana cost for throwing skills to make it so you don't have any mana issues, and just like some res, endurance, health on there is good. As far as the base for the rings, copper rings are nice because they do give you percentile crit. If you can't get a copper ring, that's totally fine. Don't prioritize too much on the base for the ring. It's actually more important for the rest of the stats for the ring slot. So if you need some LE res, you can go for a gold ring. You can use the opal ring for extra dex for crit. Ruby rings are great for the fire damage. You can also use an ivory ring just for necrotic res. So whatever you need to fill out the holes in your gear. For the belt, the Praetorian base is the best one because it gives you 250 armor. You can also use a spider silk sash to help cap your poison and cold res if you still need it though. For the gloves, we're going to focus on getting Eternal Gauntlets for the 211 armor, and the armor mitigation applies to dot. It is way more armor than any of the other gloves, so I highly recommend that, but you could use some Crusader Gauntlets or Solarium if you need the crit or void res. The boots base is super important. You want to go for Citadel boots. Not only does it give you the highest armor by far at 185 flat armor, it also gives you 50% reduced bonus damage taken from crits. So just with the helmet and the boots, you are able to get over 100% reduced bonus damage taken from crits. So you don't need to put any of that on your gear. For the relic, you're eventually going to use the unique relics that we mentioned in the level 1 uniques section. But until then, a Solarium banner is really great because it gives you 5% block chance. You could also use an Argent Crest for the res or the Solar Commandment for the fire damage. But just focus on getting as much like dex and crit multi as possible, and whatever res, endurance, or health that you may need. And then for your amulet, there are some unique options that we will go over in the other planners, but a bone amulet is great for the extra fizz and necrotic res. And then that's basically going to wrap up the budget section for the gear. Here in a second, we're going to go over the more endgame planner, utilizing some more uniques and why that we chose to use those, and how to read the planners for the stat priority on slamming stats onto the unique items. Alrighty guys, here is the kind of endgame planner. We are going to have an aspirational planner that's going to go over some even higher end uniques that you can get that are a lot rarer, or some uniques that I wouldn't use unless you get like 2 to 3 legendary potential. But this is more or less what my character looks like as far as the gearing option goes. Now, the first thing I want to call out before anyone freaks out and sees 4 LP legendaries on here, I don't put 4 LP legendaries on here because I expect you to get them, but I put them on here so I can show you the tier of stats of priority. So the top priority stat is going to be the one that's listed as a T7 stat. So for example, on the Stygians, it's going to be block chance. The second best stat is going to be damage reflected to attackers. The third is the tier 5 stat, reduced damage taken on block. And the least important stat is the percentile armor. So I want you guys to be able to read all the planners on that way. All of the uniques here are still worthwhile using even without any mods on them. So like I was saying, yeah, we want to focus on the block chance. That is going to help your defenses way more than the damage reflect will, as well as it gives you that more damage multiplier. So you're still getting damage out of it. So please prioritize that over the damage reflect. Reduced damage taken on block, you're going to be close to 100% block chance. I think I'm at like 92 on my character right now once you get the T7 block chance slammed on your shield. So just having 10% less damage taken is really strong. Percentile armor is obviously really great. A good alternative, probably the only other stat that I would really go for besides percentile armor, is if you really need it, you can put all resistance on there, which is really strong. As far as the Fire Starter's Torch, I've been getting a lot of questions on this item. I know in the previous iteration, I was using the one-handed axe, the Monument of Protection. So I want to go over the pros and cons of each of them. So the reason I was using this is most people think this is actually a shield. It is not. It is a one-handed axe. And that's very important because the stats that you can slam on it are related to axe stats and not shield stats. So I can't put extra block chance on this shield. However, it does come with 10% block chance and block effectiveness. And then the only other good stat on here is the percentile increased block effectiveness, which is really strong. So if you remember from shield throw, the block chance is going to give us a more damage multiplier. So if you have both of the block chance nodes, that is 150% of your block chance as a more damage multiplier. So at most, the shield is giving you 5% more damage. Like I said earlier, because we have so much flat damage, you want to get as much more damage multipliers as possible. So 5% more damage. It's really important to remember that number when I start going over the Fire Starter Torch. The other thing with the block effectiveness, on average, it was ending up giving us about 30%, or sorry, 30 crit multi with all of the extra block effectiveness and percentile block effectiveness. So 5% more damage and 30% crit multi is basically what we got from this guy. What we get from the Fire Starter Torch is we get up to 42% more fire damage to enemies afflicted by Spreading Flames. We automatically get an application for Spreading Flames on hit. We're hitting really fast. That's going to be like all the time. So 42% more damage compared to 5% and like 30% crit multi. The Fire Starter's Torch is just infinitely better for damage when you look at the map. On top of that, Fire Starter's Torch is one of the easiest items to get a massive amount of legendary potential on. I set up maybe like 50,000 favor worth of prophecies for one-handed unique scepters. And I probably have 10 to 15 3LP Fire Starter Torches. And I do have a 4LP Fire Starter Torch that I am using on my character. It is very, very easy to obtain, meaning we get a lot of extra stats to slam on top of there. Again, we're going to prioritize crit multi, then fire damage or crit chance. If you don't have any percentile crit on your gear, you can put crit chance here, but I think it's better to get the fire damage. And then fire penetration. The last stat is way less important. I like stun chance because you actually have a really high chance to stun with shield throw. So I'm constantly interrupting like big bosses at like 700 corruption. So the extra stun chance is really nice. But you can put like chill chance or slow chance on there too. Doesn't really matter. My 4LP actually only has the 2 prefixes. They're just both exalted mods. So I chose that and having dud suffixes as a priority, but get as close to this as you can. For the last unique, Code of the Erased Sentinel, prioritize crit multi, then dex for the flat flat crit that you get from there. You can also get like flat throwing damage on here is really great. And then these suffixes, if you need endurance, you need to hit 60% endurance on your character for 1 shot protection. So you can get endurance on here, you can get health, you can get res, whatever else you need to get on the suffixes. And that basically wraps up the uniques. I guess we do also have the Throne of Ambition. So Throne of Ambition is a unique relic. This is the only idol here that is going to get anywhere close to competing with the Weaver idols. There is not a single other idol that you would ever want to trade out for Weaver idols on here. So if you have enough Weaver idols to fill all your slots, you are going to use all of those except for the slot for Throne of Ambition. Do not trade it out for anything else. I don't care how cool you think it is. I promise you it's not better. What Throne of Ambition does, though, the reason why it is better than the Weaver idols is every time you hit a boss or a rare enemy with a 1-second cooldown, you get 2% more fire damage and 2% more armor. And it stacks up to 20 times, so you're getting 40% more damage. So basically another Fire Starter Torch and 40% more armor. So that is the only reason why it is better for these 4 slots here. Outside of that, prioritize the highest flat reflect damage to attacks. It's okay. It's going to take you a really long time before you get stats that have like 2 good mods on here. I think I have 2 of them that have health on there and reflect. Just really focused on trying to get the highest amount of reflect on here as possible. As far as the other stats, I kind of just highlighted the exalted mod for whatever stats the most important on each piece of gear. So like crit multi, levels to shield throw, damage reflect to attackers. Health is a very close second though. Increased health, throwing attack speed. One of the things I do show on here is that I actually seal off the flat throwing damage. The reason being is we already have enough flat. The main reason why you want it is for the minus throwing cost, and dexterity is better if you can get it on there, but you need to make sure you have that minus throwing mana. How you do that, if you aren't aware on crafting for sealed mods, is you are going to be using a Glyph of Despair on the mod that you would like to seal. Now, to get basically 100% chance to seal, what you want to do is craft on your throwing flat damage as the 4th stat on the item. So what it should look like is instead of dex here, is going to look like this. So you want to craft all 4 of your stats on there. It doesn't matter what the tiers are on your other stats. Just make sure that you have 4 mods on the item and that your throwing mana cost is the last stat you add on, because you want the throwing mana cost to only be a tier 1. Because if you try to use a Glyph of Despair on an item that has the max amount of mods on it, and the lower the tier the mod is that you're trying to seal, the higher the chance is to seal it. So if it looks like this, you're basically going to have a 100% chance to seal off this tier 1 modifier. So then it moves over to the seal slot, and then you just craft dexterity on top of it, and then you upgrade the rest of your stats. So super, super easy to get. But if you can't do it, you just take off the dex, you just put throwing flat mana on there. As far as the boots, the gloves, focus on the hybrid. Same with the boots. And then that kind of goes over all the gear. As far as the blessings go, I've only filled out the slots that give you actual character buffs. These slots just help increase like drops of like shards, so they're really not that important. So focus on crit multi for the Black Sun, lightning res for ending storms, you don't have to worry about res. Go for the 20% all res on Reign of Dragons, the 8% block chance on Age of Winter, and the 30% Spirits of Fire. If you do happen to already have all of your endurance capped on just your gear, you can very easily swap this out just for increased fire damage. So whichever one makes the most sense for your character. You can also put armor on there if you feel like you're struggling with defense. And then that basically wraps up all of the gear choices here. The passive and skill trees are the exact same between the budget version and the endgame version. And then we can briefly go over the endgame variants. And then later on in the video, I am going to show you how to target farm each of these unique items, as well as the ones in the aspirational planner, and show you the best way to farm out the idols, because I know this is going to be the hardest part to actually get all of the slots for. All right, guys, last but not least, we have the aspirational planner that I want to go over. The first thing I want to call out is none of these are required for the build. The only thing that's required is the shield, like we went over before. Again, everything's going to have 4 legendary potential on there. That's going to be tiered based on the affixes, a priority for which ones to go for first. So T7 is the most important, then T6, then T5, then T4. So keep that in mind when you're going through the gear. So we've already went over the Stygians, the Firestarter, as well as the Code of the Erased and the Throne of Ambition. So I'm not going to go over those again. Those don't change. Now, the reason why I stick with the Great Helm for my helmet is because getting that 85% reduced bonus damage taken on from crits is very, very important. And you're already going to be losing the boot slot for the rest of it. So I would not swap this out for anything. The only thing that would get close is like, yeah, a 4 LP Snowblind would get you much more armor. Or you could use a Prismatic Gaze for extra base crit chance and less LE damage taken. But I don't think that they're better than just using a Great Helm. It is that good of a helmet. So just prioritize getting at least plus 3 levels on shield throw. I feel like plus 4 doesn't really get you too much more, which is why I prioritize the higher stat of increased health. But I would try to at least get the plus 3 if you can. Next up, let's go over the amulet. This is the Nihilist. This is farmed from the Aberoth boss, both the Uber and the regulated version. Now, there is a large variable in the rolls on the Nihilist amulet. So I would not use this amulet if you get bad rolls. I have like 2 of these in my stash that I farmed on my other character that I'm not using because they are terrible. I got like all negative rolls. So if you look at the amulet on the implicit, you can roll from 1 to 12% health. You don't really care about the mana. The move speed's negligible. It's like you don't want negative move speed, but you know, if it's like -1, it's not a big deal. As far as the other stats, you can get +1 to +2 level of all skills. That is a very, very strong. I did update all of the skill trees to show where you would put all of the extra points if you did get max level of points. So that should be updated with the sliders to kind of show you what to grab. But getting a +2 is way better than the +1. The increased mana regen, as long as it's not negative, it doesn't really matter. You don't really suffer with mana regen in this build. The more armor is very important to be positive. You don't want to be negative armor. If you do get a more armor multiplier on here, that's basically an instant armor cap for this character. So you can cap out at the 85% once you get to utilize your Forge Guard passive So really, really strong. All res, also really, really good for the character. Just try not to get negative resistances if you can. And then the downside of this build is whenever you use Evade, you do sacrifice 20%, 10 to 20% of your current health. But it also gives you Frenzy. We don't really care about the Frenzy portion since we auto get it from Volatile Reversal. But you heal so much in this build, 10% of your health and you evade, it's really not a big deal. The rest of the stats are really good. I do want to go over the alternative and actually what I'm using on my character right now because I have a really bad roll for this amulet. The other amulet that you can use is the Omnis Amulet. This drops off of a 300 corruption plus Shade of Orbis. This is going to give you crit chance, +1 to level of all skills, and then a wide roll of resistances. It's not too hard to farm this guy, and so if you can get one with pretty decent resistances across the board and get that free +1, and you can now guarantee one stat you're slamming on an amulet. So if you get at least a 1 LP Omnis, I would definitely use it and slam on like a T7 crit multi. That's exactly what mine looks like. So great alternative option. For the chest armor, Mantle of the Pale Ox sounds weird. This is actually recommended to me by a viewer, and I agree with them the more and more I look at it. So the first thing here is you get 16 to 24% of your damage redirected to your highest health minion. We actually have a lot of minions in this build. They don't really do a whole lot other than just being ricochet fodder for us. But we have Ring of Shields that spawns a ton of minions. We have a passive summon for Ring of Shields. And we're summoning Forged Weapons from Forge Strike. So they're going to get one shot if they take an attack for you, but it doesn't really matter because you're summoning them so often that it's definitely worth the damage reduction that you're getting from that. On top of this, you get 20 to 32 percentile increased health for you and your minions. That is massive, especially when you consider the fact you can slam percentile health on the chest. So you could get 60+% health just from this one item alone. If you look at me on the planner, I'm at 6,500 health of this build. A lot of that is coming from the Mantle of the Pale Ox. And then on top of all of that, you get increased movement speed and strength, and you get levels to your strength minions, which does include Ring of Shields and Forge Strike. So just a really good all-around chest armor. Even when you lose some of the flat armor that you would normally gain, you make up a lot of that with the other defenses it offers. Okay, next up is the Brewmaster as a belt. Now for this guy, I wouldn't use it unless I had at least a 2 LP, possibly 3 LP belt. Losing that much health on the build is pretty rough. In the other versions, you really want to try to at least push over 3,000 to 3,500 health if you can. So I would only use this if I got the double health rolls on there. You don't really need the damage rolls. So if you got a really good 2 LP belt with double health, I would use it at that point. We already went over Code of the Array Sentinel. Now, these next parts are going to kind of go hand in hand with each other. Everybody knows about the Red Wing of Valaria. I know they're super rare, not necessary whatsoever for the build to function at high corruption. I don't have them on my current build. I don't have most of these items because I'm Circle of Fortune. I have to find all my own gear, and I'm stubborn and will only use items with really high LP. So the reason why we can use Red Wing of Valaria is it's going to give us all attributes. So it's going to give us dexterity, which is great, and strength, which is great. It's going to give us all resistance. And then the kicker here is you get 10% less damage taken if you have at least 180 health. Or sorry, 180 total attributes. You will not have 180 total attributes unless you have some of these other combos. So you get 15 attributes, or 14, sorry, with the Brewmaster's belt. So having a high vitality roll is really important for here. So if you have that, and you're using the Blood of the Exile, the reason why you use it is it gives us 30% movement speed, and you can slam movement speed on top of it, so you can go really fast, but then it gives you up to 12 of each of the primary attributes. So that's going to help you get way closer to that 180 total attribute counter to use the red rings. So I probably wouldn't use red rings unless I was able to get to 180 attributes, which is probably going to require these 2 pieces of gear. But if you do happen to get those, great. Focus on trying to get throwing attack speed and minus mana cost on there. It's going to be really hard to get legendary potential in these guys, but everybody, every single time I make a build says, please, for all the merchant guys, what do you think is like super aspirational? This is what it looks like. Obviously, you're never going to get a 4 LP, maximum 1 to 2 LP. Try to get throwing attack speed or minus throwing mana cost on there. So same thing for both rings. This last piece of gear, it comes off Uber off, which is the super hard final boss in the game. So it's going to be a very much of chase item. I know most of the stats are not going to make a lot of sense, but here's why we use it. One, it's on the Eternal Gauntlet base, which is the best base in the game for gloves. So it gives you that crap ton of armor, as well as the armor mitigation applies a dot. And it gives you 25 to 30% of hit damage is taken from bosses and rare enemies is dealt over 4 seconds instead. This is such a massive quality of life to your defense. So if you take this huge hit that's going to one-shot you, it's going to mitigate a crap ton of that damage. And you have so much leech on this build that you're easily going to be able to deal with it when it's dealt to you over 4 seconds. So just that stat alone makes these gloves like the best gloves in the game for almost every single build. Also, while you have more than 10% of your maximum health as delayed damage from the previous node we just went over, damage to your health below your endurance threshold is reduced by 30%. It's a little bit of extra help. Again, just helps with the one-shot protection. We don't have a really high endurance threshold, but does help. Melee attack speed is useless. Melee damage leech is useless. Health and strength, both great. Health, always good to have. Strength, that's damage and extra fire red shred chance for us from the passive tree. So fantastic pair of gloves. And then everything else is going to stay the same as far as these skills and passive trees and blessings and all of that. But this is like the uber crazy character planner that I would go for if I just had infinite funds and legendary potential. So hopefully that all makes sense. Let me know if you guys have any questions about stuff, or maybe some other alternatives that you guys thought of that would be that you think would be better or at least comparable. And I'm happy to consider them, but this is what I think a min-max character would look like for the shield throw character. But I do want to go over all of how to farm these different pieces of gear, especially if you're in Circle of Fortune. So I will be going over that here in just a second. Okay, guys, the first thing I want to go over when it comes to target farming gear is how to determine where different pieces of gear can drop from. The most important distinction is a item a random drop or is it a boss drop? Because that is going to drastically determine our ability to target farm it and what methods we can use. So the first thing I want to do is show you guys in the aspirational planner, since this has most of the uniques that you'd be going for here, how to determine if it is a boss drop or if it is a random drop. So the best way to do that is if you go to any of the uniques on the planner and you click on it and you scroll down to the bottom of the unique, it is going to show you some different details here. So right here, you can see it says obtained from Abaroth, and it even has a button that you can click on to tell you more about Abaroth. Abaroth is a end game boss that you can fight, and so it tells you the drop percentage for him to drop the item, basically. So this is where you would obtain this. So this would be a boss drop because it gives a specific name of the boss that it comes from. Another example would be the shield. So if you scroll to the bottom, it says obtained from random drop. Then it tells you the general drop chance of it, and it tells you the percentage of you acquiring this item from a Rune of Ascendance. Now that's very important because you cannot use Prophecies from the Circle of Fortune or Runes of Ascendance on a boss drop item. So I just want to make that very clear so that way you guys aren't wasting your materials and your favor trying to get boss drop items. If you guys don't know what a Rune of Ascendance is, basically, it is a rune where you can put it in the crafting window, and I'll show you guys a live example here in a second in the game, where it changes a normal, magic, rare, or exalted item into a unique of the same type. Now, what the same type means is just the general type of the item. So if I use a Rune of Ascendance on a shield, whether that's normal, magic, rare, or exalted, it would give me one of these shields that is not a boss drop. It doesn't matter if it's an iron glass shield or a dawn shield. It is just going to change it into a random shield. So on the specific item, it will tell you this has a 7.81% chance when you use a Rune of Ascendance on a shield that you will acquire a Stygian's reprisal. So that's very important to kind of know how to determine that so you know what to look for. On my loot filter for the guys that are in Circle of Fortune, I will have the shields and the relics set up on a filter, so that way it will automatically determine if something is a Circle of Fortune item because if you are part of the Circle of Fortune and you use a Rune of Ascendance on an item that is tagged as Circle of Fortune, you'll have a 45% chance to not consume your Rune of Ascendance, giving you a lot more chances to acquire those items. These are going to be the main two that you're going to have to farm a lot of. So I set those ones up on the filter because there's a large variable in the rolls. Like you really want to try to get a +3 level of shield throw and have high LP. And then this guy, it's random stats because it's a Weaver's Will item. So you're going to be going through a bunch of them, trying to get like better and better stats for it. So these guys you can use Runes of Ascendance on. You can technically use them on the rings, the boots, the scepter, and the mantle, all of which if you look on it, it will tell you the chances of getting them. I would mainly prioritize the relic and the shield, as these other guys are going to be harder to obtain one that you actually want, or it'll be much easier just to farm them with Prophecies rather than Runes of Ascendance. But early game, I would definitely use your Runes of Ascendance on all these scepters you find, just to get a Fire Starter Torch, regardless of the rolls, as it's really good in the early game and really good in the end game. And then I can go into prophecy farming on how to get the 3 to 4 LP versions of this much easier here in a second. So as far as the boss drops go, both the Nihilus and the Omni Amulet that I went over in the Aspirational Planner come from bosses. So this comes from a Shade of Orbis with a minimum corruption of 200, and it has a 15% chance to drop. And then this guy comes from the Aberoth, which is a little bit harder than doing a Shade. So either one of those amulets will work. The Throne of Ambition comes from the God Hunter Argentus, which is the Stolen Timeline boss, and it has a 6% chance to drop. That guy's a little bit harder to farm. The Brewmaster Buckle comes from the Grand Brewery Woven Echo with a 100% chance to drop, so you only have to do one of those to obtain a base one. However, I would only use this belt, like I said earlier, if you have like a 2 LP with the health mods on there. The hardest item to get probably here is the Immortal Vise, which requires you to kill the Uber Aberoth fight, but it has an 80% drop chance. So that guy is going to be a much harder version of Aberoth, but it's almost guaranteed to drop the gloves for you. And then everything else will be a random drop that you can use Runes of Ascendance or Prophecies on. So if you want to double check anything, just make sure you click on it, see where the drop is coming from, because that is very important. Alrighty guys, next up I wanted to show you some stuff in game as far as the Runes of Ascendance go. So like I said, you'll click the F key to pull open your forge. This is going to be where you use the Runes of Ascendance. You're going to click the rune button here, and then you're going to go over to where it says Rune of Ascendance. So it's going to change the base item into a unique of the same type. Now, again, if you are in the Circle of Fortune, so if we go over here and look at your rank, if you look at the rank 2 reward upgrade, 45% chance for Runes of Ascendance to be preserved when used on an item that requires at least Circle of Fortune rank 1. So it's going to automatically show it on your filter and the orangish color right here if you're using my filter. But another way you can tell is if you look at this exalted shield in the very bottom right hand corner, it's got a little purple icon next to where it says requires level 60, and then it says rank 5. So that means it's a Circle of Fortune item, which will have that chance not use your Rune of Ascendance. Same thing with the scepter. And then if you look at this chest armor, it does not have it on there, so that would not have the chance to not consume your rune. So like I was saying, it doesn't matter what shield you use or what base you use, as long as it's the same item type. So we could use this guy, and then it gave us a Raya's Light, so not the shield we're looking for. Or you can use any scepter to try to get the Fire Starter's Torch. You go over here, even though it is a skeleton scepter and not a brass scepter, you use that, and it gave me a ice scepter. So those guys had a chance to not consume my Runes of Ascendance. I had 4 when I started, and I just used 2, so one of those did not consume it. And then this guy is not a Circle of Fortune item, but it did not give us the Pale Hawk. Sadly, we're 0 for 3 there, but that at least shows you a good example on how those runes will work when it comes to target farming with them. The next thing I want to show you guys when it comes to target farming in Last Epoch is the Circle of Fortune's main target farming mechanic called Prophecies. So if you want to come here, you'll just click Y and you'll click visit observatory, and then it will give you an option to teleport to the observatory. Once you're here, there's going to be a couple of key places. So you have your vendor, which we'll go over later to purchase lenses. And then you have these telescopes here scattered across the room. It doesn't matter which one you click on, but when you click on them, you're going to see these random little icons, and you're going to have different directions on a compass. Now, what these icons are is a quest in order to drop a certain type of item. So the first thing that I want you to look at is the event. So it says Death of God Hunter Argentus. So that is the requirement for the quest, is you must kill God Hunter Argentus. The condition is that he is the Stolen Lance timeline boss. So that you have to be in the Stolen Lance, and that you have to have a minimum of 120 corruption. The reward that it's going to give you is 18 exalted reigns. And at the very top, it says fulfilled 0 out of 2 times. That means I could kill him the first time, he's going to drop 0, or he's going to drop 18 reigns. And then if I kill him the second time, he's going to give me another 18 reigns. You can see the little 1 icon by the skull under event. That's how many times you have to kill him for the prophecy to proc. Let's see if there's a random one here. Okay, so like this one right here, if you look at it, it says event, death of an exile mage, but it has a 2 by the skull, which means you have to kill 2 exile mages at 100 corruption, because that's the condition, and then it will reward you with 10 reigns, and you can fulfill that 2 times. So that's 4 exile mages total for 20 rare reigns. So that's basically how you read it. Now, the directions here are the types of items that you're going to see for these quests. So in the very south section, it is going to give you jewelry when you're going through this. In the east section, you're going to see weapons and offhands. In the north section, you're going to see armor. And in the west section, you're going to see idols, glyph, runes, and keys. So just depending on what you're trying to farm, you're going to go to a different direction. The next part that I want to go over is the lenses. These are what you're going to see in the bottom right-hand corner. What these will do is they will change how the quests appear on here, giving it either different modifiers or increasing the chance to see certain types of items. So there's a very specific setup that I think is best when it comes to farming for items. It's very simple, and I kind of want to show you how to do that. So in order to buy lenses, you're going to go over to the merchant here. She's going to have a gambling vendor, and then you're going to have regional lenses and greater lenses. So the first thing that you're going to want for every setup that you're rolling is you're going to want one lens that is target farming the specific thing that you are looking for. So I'm going to give you an example on farming for a Firestarter's torch. So I'm going to be looking for scepters because the Firestarter torch is a scepter. So I'm going to pick up a scepter lens. So this says 40% increased chance per rank to find scepter prophecies. So every time I re-roll, I'm getting 40 times 12 because I'm max rank. Is going to be the increased amount that it's going to show scepter prophecies on there. The next thing I'm going to go for is the greater lenses that is going to change how it is rolling the actual prophecies. Now, if you are very early level, and when I say early level, I mean before rank 8 and 7, typically what you're going to want to go for is stuff that is like reduced chance for arenas, or there's one that does like reduced high corruption. So reduced chance for prophecies to have high corruption, because most likely you're either just an empowered monolith or you are just entering monolith, and you're not going to be able to do the prophecies that have like 300 corruption requirement on them. Early game, you're also only going to have 2 lens slots. So I'd probably just use the obscuring lens and then whatever you're trying to target farm. I wouldn't do too much prophecy farming until you're around like level 6 to 7, maybe just a couple if you need the shield and a scepter just to get them going. But I would try to wait until like 7 or 8 because you're going to get access to the 2 most powerful lenses that you're going to use every single time, no matter what you're farming for. So the first one is the refracting lens of Rhine. This is going to increase the amount of favor you have to spend to acquire a prophecy by 104%, but it's going to make all of the prophecies offer twice as many uses before expiring. For example, if we had a prophecy where we kill a boss one time and he gives us 10 rings, now it's going to allow us to kill that boss 2 times, and he's going to give us 10 rings each time. The second one is going to be the refracting lens of wealth. So it's going to add another more multiplier. These guys are going to stack, so it's going to make the prophecies cost a lot more, but this is going to make it offer double the rewards. So if I pair these two together with our example, now instead of doing a ring prophecy for killing a boss that I can do 2 times for 10 rings with this Rhine lens, I can now do it 2 times for 20 rings with these stacked together. So always use these two if you are higher enough level, and then grab whatever specific item you're trying to target farm. So if you're doing the shield, you're going to grab the shield. If you are looking for the chest armor, you're going to grab chest armors. So whatever that is. So we're going to bring these lenses over, and we are going to go to the weapons set category, which is over here on the east. I'm going to pull my shield out. I'm going to put these two in here with the scepter. So now the lenses are in there, and then the next time you re-roll is going to apply those on here. Now, the next thing I want to go over is which prophecies I would recommend picking up. I think it is a tremendous waste of time to pick up prophecies with an activity or an event required of something you're not actively farming. For example, I will never pick up an arena prophecy because I don't want to go spend 30 minutes doing an arena. I want to go continue farming whatever timeline I'm doing, or trying to farm whatever blessing I'm trying to acquire, or whatever that may be. So for me currently in the game, I am farming the Fall of the Outcast timeline. So I'm going to make sure a majority of my prophecies are able to be acquired in the Fall of the Outcast timeline. The only exception that I put to that is sometimes you'll get prophecies that say kill rare monsters in a dungeon. As long as I can do them all in the same dungeon, those ones are really cost efficient and very easy to proc. So I'll go run through a dungeon in 10 minutes and do like 15 prophecies all at once. So that's like the one exception I'll do because it's so easy to do. But other than that, I'm going to make sure they're in my timeline. So I'm looking for unique scepters. So I don't even have to look at it unless I see this symbol and it's an orange symbol. So don't be afraid to reroll a whole bunch. It only costs 225 favor to reroll. If you look at these prophecies, because we have so many multipliers on them, they're like 10 to like 30,000 for a lot of these. So it's okay to reroll a whole bunch to make sure you're getting the prophecies that you want. It's going to be worth it. On top of it, every time you spend favor, so you're spending favor when you're rerolling, it helps increase your rank. So you're actually getting something while you're rerolling. So it's okay if you reroll 20 times. So if I look right here, it says the event is the Death of Fire Lich Cremoris, and that is from the Soulfire Bastion. I don't really like doing Soulfire Bastion. I'm pretty much only going to do the dungeon stuff for Temporal Sanctum, so I'm just going to keep rerolling and keep going for it. So right here, we have Fall of the Empire, Death of the Hearten's Husk. I'm not farming that timeline, so I'm just gonna keep going until I find something that's more neutral. So this is a great example. The event is Death of a Nemesis monster. Every single timeline has Nemesis monsters in it, no matter what you're doing. I'm way over 100 corruption, so this would be a perfect one for me. So I would go ahead and click on that. I don't have a lot of favor right now, so I'm not actually going to click on it, but I can fulfill that 2 times, and it's going to give me 8 unique scepters for each one death of a Nemesis monster. So that's really easy to do. We'll keep rolling until we see another unique scepter. Okay, so Deaths of Amber Elementals, but it requires you to be in the Lightless Arbor dungeon. I don't want to do that. Frost Lich and the Blood, Frost, and Death timeline. Not really what I'm doing right now. Lightless Arbor dungeon. Here's another great generic one. Death of Boss. It doesn't say what boss it is. All that's required is that it has to be in the monolith. So this actually accounts for the monolith boss, Shade of Orbis. Anytime you get a boss event for an echo where it's like, go kill this dragon, that will count for it. So I can proc this 6 times each time I kill a boss, and it's going to give me 2 unique scepters. So that's a great one to pick up. Here's another really good one. Death of Rare Enemy. I can get rare enemies in every single monolith timeline. So every 7 rare enemies I kill, it's going to give me 8 unique scepters, and I can fulfill that 2 times. I just have to be at 140 corruption. So that's another one I would pick up. Death of Exile Mage. You get Exile Mages in every single timeline. So another great one. Every 3 Exile Mages I kill, I get 2 unique scepters. I can fulfill it 6 times. So if you go in with like 50,000 favor and you stack like 10, 15 of these, you're going to be able to proc a whole bunch of duplicates. Like if I get a bunch of Death of Exile Mages, I'm going to get like 20 unique scepters, all dropping from like 1 Exile Mage kill. So it becomes really, really easy to farm while you're doing the activities that you were already planning on doing. So that is kind of how I set up my prophecies. So I use these to farm any of the non-boss uniques, especially like the shield and the scepter. And then I'll do the same thing to farm for the exalted scepters and shields for the items I'm planning to use to slam into those unique items. So I'll follow the same exact rule where I'm looking for all the exalted nodes for scepters now. You can even roll these prophecies at the exact same time, just making sure they're generic quest rewards. So hopefully that makes sense with the prophecy farming and the example I gave. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments, or if you catch me live on stream, I'll walk you through it live, going through that process. I have no problems with helping you guys out while I'm streaming. I try to use that time to answer any questions that you guys have. That's harder to kind of formulate that question in the comment section. So yes, come ask me on the stream and I'll show you whatever you're looking for live on stream and how to do the best way to target farm that item. Okay, guys, the next thing I want to show you how to target farm is the unique, or sorry, not the unique, the small idols with the reflect damage. This is going to be the most tedious part to farm, as it takes a really long time to acquire all of these idols. And then there's a variance in the roll, so you kind of want to make sure you have good rolls on there. Now, currently, it doesn't allow you to roll prophecies for these idols. I believe that is a bug, because if you look at the prophecies on idols, it lets you roll for other Reaver idols, for the 2x1 Reaver idols, just not the 1x1 Reaver idols. So hopefully they fix that in the future. But right now, there's really only one place that these guys are dropping, or 2 technically. They're dropping from tombs and cemeteries, which is the new league mechanic. So every echo that you do has a chance to summon a tomb inside the echo. It will show you as a blinking icon on your mini map when you run into them. They are going to look like this on the mini map when you are actually in the echo. So you go in there, any monster you kill, the boss you kill, and any of the little chests along the side that you open have a chance to drop these idols. So they will show up on a loot filter in a bright color for you. I believe it's green for the idols. So make sure you're looking out for those. Do all the tombs and cemeteries that you come across. Now, the cemeteries show up as a objective on your echo. So anytime you see these, just make sure you go do them. Try to full clear them so you can get all the caches that you can, and that will give you the highest chance to get these. Another thing that you can do is there is some woven echoes that will allow you to farm them. So you have Lostwood Folly that you can place after you do a cemetery into your echo device. That will give you some monsters that do have a chance to drop them. I didn't really have a lot of good luck doing Lostwood Folly, and some of the monsters are pretty rippy. So I just prefer using tombs and cemeteries. And then right here as well, the Cenotaph of Worlds. This one I have dropped a few off of. Basically, it puts a guaranteed tomb inside your echo. So you have to put this in after you kill a cemetery. It'll give you like an echo map to slot this in. This one does require 100 corruption though. And it will basically grab all the surrounding echoes and give you the rewards for that. But it gives you a guaranteed tomb right off the bat. So if you have a bunch of these, you can just slap them in back to back to back with each other and just run them all real quick. And just to get a bunch of guaranteed tombs that are easy to find. So just make sure you're clearing out all of those. It's going to take a little while. You don't need all of the idols to make the build work. Yeah, you can even do it without any of the idols, just with the passive tree, like the chest mod on your shield. And that should be plenty to kind of get you going. but that is the best way to currently target farm them. If they fix the bug, I'll make sure to let you guys know in an update or a post with the prophecies, but that is how I farmed all of mine in a couple days. All right, guys, next up, I want to show you guys how to import my filters and how to read my filters. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to click one of the links in the video description that says loop filter. I do have 2 separate filters for this build because I max out on rules that it would allow me to do. So I split them up between leveling and early monos and then a late game filter. So first thing is you're going to click that link. You're going to get a page that looks something like this with a bunch of text. What you're going to do is click Control A. It's going to highlight all of the text here for you. And then you're either going to click Control C or you're going to right click and click Copy. That's going to put it all to your clipboard. Next up in game, if you click Shift F, it's going to pull up your loop filter page. You're going to click the little plus sign. And do not click create new filter, but click paste clipboard contents. So this is the end game filter that is going to be set up here. So it's going to show you everything you need. So you click confirm, and then this will show you what the end game loop filter looks like. Now there is instructions right here where it says uncheck the T6 and T7 purple rules from each item for a strict filter. So what that means is you see here, it goes through every single item. And then there are some modifiers here that have these purple texts that are kind of generic. And so if you want a stricter loop filter, all you're going to do is uncheck and uncheck. So any of them that have that purple color, you just uncheck them. And that will make it an even stricter loop filter. So once you guys are progressing further in the end game, you'll kind of know what to look for making that stricter. Now, other than that, anything that shows in yellow or pink, yellow is a T6 modifier and pink is a T7 modifier of that item. If it shows up in red, that means it is a rare affix that you are going to want to use a Rune of Shatter on. So I have in the rule there, next to where it shows the red, use Rune of Shatter if not equipped. So if it's not an upgrade for you, use the Rune of Shatter on it so you can get the affixes from that item to craft on your other items. It just shows up in this baby blue color. It's a very rare fix, and it says use Rune of Removal if not equipped. So if it's not an upgrade for you, you're going to open up your crafting bench, click on Rune of Removal, and keep removing the mods until it hits the rare mod. As far as the other mods go, if it shows up in an orange color, it means it's a COF, shield, or relic that you're going to use a Rune of Ascendance on. So I try to give you very specific instructions so you kind of know what to do with each color. So that's going to be how you farm the Code of the Erase and the Stygians, is by using the Runes of Ascendance on these guys. If it shows up in the green color, it means it's a Reflect idol, so one of these guys. I by default show all unique set and legendary items, and items with 1 LP will be highlighted extra. So if you want to disable those, you can. All of the items that are very rare, as far as uniques go, or ones that are used for the build, are going to highlight in kind of a white text, almost like a Divine Orb in or in Path of Exile. So for example, you can see this guy's in like a super bright white font compared to like this guy. So that's how you know it's either a very rare item or something that's actually used for our build. So that way you guys don't miss it. So that is going to be the end game loot filter. The leveling filter is very similar, except it's just going to show rare items. It's going to level up with you and drop off bases as they become too low for you and you just want to get better upgrades. So it will just naturally evolve with you. Once your gear is like all exalted items, even if they're not the best exalted items, or you have really good rares where it's going to be almost impossible for you to upgrade that rare to something that's not exalted, that's going to be when you want to swap over to this filter. But the color coding is going to be the exact same between those guys. It's just going to show like rare and blue items while you're going through the campaign, and show like idols with resistance on it to help you go through the campaign. So hopefully that makes sense. If you guys have any questions about my loot filters or how to import it, or you had any issues with them, or you noticed something that maybe that's like missing that you would like to see on there that maybe others would also want to see, just let me know and I'm happy to go in and make changes as I go. So I'm not perfect. Occasionally I'll have something on there that or don't have something on there that maybe should be that would help people out. But these are the filters I use to make the character. So just let me know what you guys need and I'll accommodate the best I can. Alrighty, guys, that is going to wrap up the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the build guide. Again, if you guys have any questions, please just let me know. I try to get back to every single question that I see. If I don't see it, just feel free to re-ask or come ask me in my live stream. I try to be very vocal with you guys in the stream and help answer any questions that you guys have, or testing out new things that you guys came out with for ideas for the build that maybe would be an improvement. Also, really big thing, if there's a build you guys want to see me do, or an interaction or unique item you would really like to see me build around, as long as you know it's something that could potentially be decent and we're not just doing stuff to be try to make a build work, even if it's bad. Let me know in the comments below. I want to know what your guys' ideas are, what you guys are wanting to see, so I can kind of tailor around that and make fun build guides for you. I don't typically go straight for meta, but I just try to make the best builds I can with ideas that just look fun to me. So let me know what ideas you guys have. If you haven't already subbed to the YouTube channel, make sure you guys do that so you can get updated on more videos like these, or come check me out live on Twitch at twitch.tv/pinchingloaf. Other than that, guys, I appreciate all of you guys for watching the video to the end, and I will see you guys next time.